We've got our second video on present participles from chapter 40 of Ecce Romani, and this video is going to deal with the formation of present participles. How do we make them? Which is outlined on pages 135 and 136 in your books. We say in Latin that every conjugation, every verb and every conjugation can have a present participle. So on the top of page 135, the book lists the present participles for all of our five verbs actually, including IO, that we commonly use when we're making verb forms. So our first conjugation standard verb gives us parans, parantis, preparing. Second is habens, habentis, having. Our third conjugation, mitains, mittentis, sending. The third IO, iaciens, iacientis, throwing. And then a fourth conjugation, audiens, audientis, hearing. So those are the nominative singular and then the genitive singular forms and the meanings of the present participles for the standard verbs of each of the conjugations. So what we want to do in this video is figure out how do we form these, how do we make these, because there is a system to do it so that we can do this with any verb. So let's take our first conjugation verb, parans, and see how we do it. So parans, parantis is obviously from our verb paro, parare, paravi, paratus, meaning prepare. Since we are dealing with a present participle, we want to use the present family. I would hope that makes sense to you. And anytime we are dealing with the present family when we're making anything, we follow that standard system of using a stem and then a vowel and then some other stuff and then an ending. And that's not going to be any different here. So we want to start with our stem, which we get by taking off the last three letters of the second principal part, the present infinitive. So that gives us par. Next, we need a vowel. Well, we're in the first conjugation. I would hope it's pretty easy and understandable to you at this point that our vowel is a long A. Now we need other stuff. Sometimes that's been ba, if we've been dealing with the imperfect, or be for the future. For present participles, our other stuff is nt, and that's just the way it is, nt. So that is going to be the giveaway, the clue, the indication that we have a present participle. Now, if we left it there, we would have something that resembles the third person plural in the present tense, parans, but we're not done. We need an ending. And here's where participles take their adjective part, because our ending is going to be an adjective ending, a third declension adjective ending. And that's going to be s. We know that anything in the third declension, that nominative singular is indefined or blank. Well, here it's going to be s, because there are those different options that we've seen. So let's say s here. So that gives us parant, if we get rid of the separating dots. And now we need to do one more thing, because parant is difficult to say if you really slow down and pronounce it emphatically. And so what the Romans did is with this NTS combination, they would drop the T. So that gives us parans. It flows much better. It's easier to say. And that's going to be our nominative singular. All nominative singular present participles, as we're going to see, as we saw a few minutes ago on that first slide, end in NS. Now if we want to make the next forms, we follow that same pattern. So we have, for the genitive, our stem par, our vowel a, our other stuff nt, and then our genitive singular third declension adjective ending is. Remember, blank, is, and so on. Those are third declension endings. So parantis is genitive. Parans, the translation would be preparing, the man preparing if it's masculine, and then genitive parantis, of the man preparing. So we can follow this same pattern to get our dative, accusative, and ablative forms, paranti, parantem, and paranta. It's stem, vowel, other stuff, and then endings, blank, is, as we see. If we extend that out to the plural, we get this, parantes, parantium, parantibus, parantes, parantibus. Notice, in the genitive singular, it's IUM. Present participles act as I stem. So it's not just a UM ending, it's an IUM ending, and that's always going to happen. So here we go. This is the declension of a present participle for paro. Now this is only masculine, or one column. If you look in the chart on page 135, obviously there's feminine and neuter forms. I haven't put those here. The feminine would be exactly the same. The neuter, the only difference would be that the nominative and accusatives are the same, as you can see if you look at that chart. But we're just going to deal with one column here to keep it a little simple. So that's a first conjugation verb. Let's look at a different conjugation just to see how this pattern remains the same. Let's use audiens, audientis, from audio, a fourth conjugation verb. So we're still going to use the present stem from the present family. which is A-U-D. Now here we need to use a vowel, and since we're in the fourth conjugation, we should expect that our vowel is going to be a long I, but it's not. This is very important. For present participles, the vowel, we only have two choices. It's either A, as we saw for paro, or E for all the other conjugations. So here it's E, and it's going to be a long E. The nominative singular form, that vowel is always going to be long, whether it's A or E. So aude. Again, we should expect an I, but the rule for participles is that the vowel is E if it's not the first conjugation. Here's our other stuff, NT, and then our S ending for the nominative singular. Now we need to do one more thing here. Because the first principal part is audio, it's I-O, we need to put an I in front of the E. We've said time and time again that any verb that ends with an I-O in the first principal part, that I, we say, sticks around, it hangs around. And here's another instance of where it hangs around. So audientes. And as we clean that up, we get rid of the T as we did before. So it's audiens. That's the nominative form. Notice the nominative form always ends in NS, vowel NS, and that vowel is long. E in this case, E in any of the other conjugations except for the first. Following our pattern, we get audientes for the genitive. Notice here another rule, and this is in the notes in the middle of page 135. Now that E is short. So in the nominative form, it's a long vowel, a long E, but for all the other forms, the vowel before NT is short, so audientes. And take a second and think, what would the rest of the forms be following this pattern of stem, vowel, other stuff, and then adjective ending? Can you think of what the dative, accusative, ablative, and then all the plural forms would be? Hopefully that's what you got. Audienti, audientem, audienta, audientes, audientium, audientibus, audientes, and then audientibus. Again, only masculine. We haven't put the feminine and neuter forms up here, but they do exist. Check out the chart. There is a note to the left of the chart in your book on page 135 about various ablative singular endings. We're not going to get into that right now. That'll be for a later day, but if you are interested, you can give that a read. So again, just remember, in this video we've only put up one column, but you want to remember that as in the chart on page 135, there are masculine, feminine, and neuter forms, so be sure you check that out. And for a little more practice on this, see exercise 40D on page 136.